ETT, and then last name is Thomas, Thomas. All right, morning everyone. My name is Conservation Officer Garrett Thomas. I work with the Minnesota DNR. I'm one of the conservation officers or game wardens here in Dakota County. Just trying to put out to people, let them know that the shelter deadline for removing your fish houses is here in the southern two-thirds part of the state is on March 7th coming up here. And then in the northern part of the state, it's actually the 21st. Ice is a little thicker up there, so they get a little bit longer. The other important message is making sure you clean up after yourself, whether it be beer cans, whether it be propane bottles, fishing equipment, plywood, all that type of stuff. Please bring that off the lake with you. We run into a lot of issues every year with that stuff being frozen into the ice, not chipped out, and like I said, becomes a problem when the ice melts and washes up on shore. So please take out everything they have with you. If you're caught with any of that stuff being left, you'll be cited. Another thing I like to mention is we do always have a lot of good Samaritans coming out on the ice, picking up garbage. We pick it up as well as we find it. The important thing is if you do see someone leave a big bag of garbage or trash or whatever it might be, if you see a license plate or anything like that, that's certainly helpful for us. We can't keep track of every single one coming and going and who left what. So certainly that stuff's helpful for the public if you guys do see something like that. But yeah, the ice is still pretty decent out here in Dakota County, as you might see from the blocks of ice. But it can change fast. We got some warm temperatures coming up. We have some rain maybe for Saturday. It makes it kind of slushy, so plan ahead if you do need to pull your shelter. We have probably 75-80% already off this lake, maybe even more than that. So people were pretty proactive this year, which is great. And yeah, just be safe out there when you're doing it.
Why are these deadlines so important?
Deadlines are so important because a combination of things, right? Because the weather changes quickly. If you wait too long, then the weather and the ice can get slushy and make it hard to get things out. As you can see already, even here, the access is getting kind of torn up from people coming and going. Salt from vehicles being brought on, degrades the ice. So they try to keep the deadline at a point where the ice is still safe enough for people to, come and go without having issues. The later you go into the season, certainly you can't control how warm and slushy that it gets, and it just becomes more dangerous and more likely that stuff gets stuck.
You kind of just touched on this, but how much of this is a safety issue?
I would say a good chunk of it, in a sense of where they set the deadlines. The fishing season, depending on what you're going for, some of the seasons are continuous. Some of them close, at the end of February, like walleye does. So some of the fish houses come and go with seasons. Some stay out till the last day to try to catch, a couple more crappie or a couple more sunfish. So it's kind of just a balance of all those things between safety issues, the end of the closure for some seasons, and yeah, kind of a combination of those two things, I'd say.
You mentioned citations. If people don't get their ice fishing houses off by those dates, what could happen?
Yep, so a couple different things. So certainly citations can be issued, which are tickets that you pay a fine for. And then other ones that get left, conservation officers and sheriff's offices, we can confiscate those fish houses and certainly try to track down the owner the best we can. We try to be proactive earlier in the year, going around, that's why the shelter IDs, shelter licenses, and shelter IDs are important. So we can kind of keep track of ones we're concerned about or ones that we see on the lake that maybe don't have the proper markings that are a risk to get left. So we can track people down that way to try to hold them accountable. Because certainly we don't like going to pick other people's stuff off the ice and want to maintain accountability for all that stuff.
How much is the ticket?
It's different for each county, so I don't have a set fine amount for it, but it can vary amongst other things. So it could be shelter being left off the deadline. There may be litter associated with it, so it could be a combination of citations depending on the situation.
And the deadline is like at noon that day or sunset?
At the end of the day on the 7th, yep. So you also can still keep your fish house out there, it just can't be left unattended between midnight and 1 hour before sunrise. So it doesn't mean the season's closed and you can't bring it out. You just can't be leaving it unattended overnight like you see earlier in the season people do. So if you still think the ice is safe to go out, and it may be, you can certainly still go out and keep enjoying fishing. You just can't basically store it out there, for long periods of time like you can earlier in the year.
Have you seen a lot of ice houses this year or years past? Or is it...
Yeah, I think in the last couple of years it's definitely increased. I think typically this lake, I would guess, has about 200 fish houses on it during the year. As you can see now, there's probably only a dozen or so left here on Crystal Lake. But yeah, I think between COVID and a lot of people working from home, I've checked plenty of anglers and students that were doing distance learning or distance teleworking, where they could do it from their ice house, which is kind of cool. So we talked to a lot of people doing that this year.
We've seen a warm up, a little bit of a warm up these last couple days. Things start to melt a little bit, and then it's a little bit cooler than today. What happens if people can't get their shelters off the ice?
Yep, good question. So what we preach to people is hopefully have them contact us in advance of those issues. What happens, and we had, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, we had a big snowfall right around the deadline time, and a lot of people got their, it basically snowed heavy, melted, and then froze in, and it became a big issue, even on this lake, where people couldn't get them off by time. So what we encourage them to do is call in, let us know, hey, I'm doing my best to get this off, but it might be a couple days late. Basically just communicate in advance. Don't wait till the last day to go and find out your shelter is completely frozen in, and you've got to either hire a tow truck to come out or get some other type of equipment out. So plan ahead. Don't wait till the last day to scope it out to see what kind of condition your shelter's in. Especially the big wooden base ones get frozen in real thick.
Do you guys do a little reminder? Do you go out, do a little patrol saying, hey, you got,
Yep, absolutely. So even this morning I went out and left some notes on a couple that I was concerned about. We do that throughout the year, making sure we see identifications. That way, whether it be one that, I show up to it and the door's kicked in and I want to call the person and say, hey, heads up, someone might have, kicked into your fish house, or it may be an alarm I hear going off that I want to contact the person and say, hey, I hear a carbon monoxide in your house, carbon monoxide alarm going off in your fish house. So those identifications are really important for a lot of different reasons. And then certainly to track people down at the end of the year if they do leave trash on the ice or something like that.
Is the deadline like the same every year, or how is that determined?
Yep, good question. So it actually is not the same this year. I think it was the first last year. It's a little bit later. I guess I don't know how exactly that's picked. Maybe Lisa does back there, but I don't know why it's changed slightly. I wish I did, but it isn't always exactly the same as it every year. So it's important to look in your fishing regulation book to determine what it is for each year. So I want to say it's 6 days different maybe this year, so give or take.